Hello everybody, we are back today and we're going to be talking about Week 7 in the CFL, give my picks and predictions for these upcoming games. Before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to my channel. If not, no big deal. Now let's get into it. So the first game of the week will be Edmonton traveling over to Winnipeg to play the Blue Bombers. Obviously, coming into this, the Edmonton Elks are 0-6 on the year. I think Serezna is out for this game. Morgan might be out as well, Niles Morgan. So those could be big blows to the defensive line or the defense in general. So that is going to be something to watch out for. Taylor Cornelius, after being pulled in the fourth quarter, I believe it was, against Hamilton, is expected to be the first string quarterback for this game. So going into this one, expect Cornelius, even though they've been playing around with the whole Daggy situation as of late. As for Winnipeg, they're coming off of a loss to the Ottawa Redblacks where they had a 25-6 lead at one point, if I'm not mistaken. Should be, at this point, what would they be, 5-1 had they won that game? Instead, they're 4-2. They are pretty healthy, and Kenny Lawler is set to return for this one. I don't want to harp too much on this game because, ironically, like I said last week with Ottawa against Winnipeg, I feel like this one could be more of the ugly game of the week. This being the case with Lawler coming back and all that, I really do think Winnipeg should win this, especially if Serezna and Morgan are out for Edmonton. They haven't been clicking. Probably wouldn't expect them to do so against one of the better teams in the league. So for this game, I'm picking Winnipeg, of course. As for the second game of the week, we have the Toronto Argonauts traveling over to Hamilton for an in-provincial rivalry here, as we have two sides that are kind of at the opposite ends here. Not crazy opposite, I guess the fact that Toronto has started off the year so hot, 4-0, whereas Hamilton started off the year poorly. 0-3, they've clawed their way back to 2-3. This would be a huge win for the Tiger Cats. They are facing some adversity. Of course, yes, this is a home game, but they have no Matthew Schultz, no Bo Levi Mitchell, and it is Taylor Powell who is expected to start this game for the Tabbies. It's one of those situations where Hamilton, it feels like since 2021 especially, has had like a plethora of quarterbacks that they've had to use. Maybe that's just me, especially last year. I feel like they had to go with a lot of guys. So I guess that is kind of a norm that they've had to deal with, so we'll see if they can do so. And Toronto, of course, is a team that is coming off of a very impressive win against the Montreal Alouettes. They were able to stay poised, even though Montreal was able to go toe-to-toe with them, and they were able to get a game-sealing interception on the final play, beating a good Montreal side that, even though the record isn't indicative of it, they still look better than I expected them to be. For this one, I'm going to be honest here, I do think some guys are going to be out for Toronto in this game. I don't remember who it is exactly. I just saw it was part of their defensive line. But still, I think I'm going to be picking the Argos here. Yes, this is a rivalry game. Yes, this is a game where Hamilton should be pretty motivated with Powell. We don't really have a lot of answers as to how he'll play. He played against a not ideal or not a great Edmonton team last week. This week, you're playing against a team that is probably the favorites to win the Grey Cup considering their record and how they've started. So yeah, for this one, I'm going to be picking Toronto to move to 5-0. Don't know the last time they did it, but it would be a great thing for them to get this fan base buzzing even more. The third game of the week will be the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling to BC to play the BC Lions. Saskatchewan coming off of a very tough loss to the Calgary Stampeders. Rene Paredes ended up scoring like a 50-yard field goal to win the game, 33-31, and also they lost Trevor Harris. Now you kind of wonder what's going to happen here with the Riders. I like what they've got going with pieces of their receiving core. I like what they've got going with their running back situation. But of course, they are going to be throwing out Mason Fine, who has been around for the team for a while. I don't remember what year he started out with them, but he's been there at least 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Probably longer, actually. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I've been working a lot of overtime. But yeah, he's there. He's had some experience, but not a ton. He's going to be playing against the Lions, who are coming off of a bye. They're the team that is first in the West right now. They are 4-1. They have a lot to kind of play for. They get a big boost when Winnipeg lost last week against Ottawa, and they like to keep that momentum rolling because when those two teams play down the line, you imagine that could be for the division. And as for Saskatchewan, they're really trying to figure out if they can stay afloat without Trevor Harris. I think that this game is probably going to come down to A, how well Fine does, B, how well the defense or the offensive line for Saskatchewan does. I think they've allowed a decent amount of sacks. I could be wrong there. CFL, stats are kind of down, but also how Morrow responds in the receiving core. All around, though, I do think I got to pick the Lions here. They are coming off of a week of preparation, week of rest, and they are playing a backup quarterback. Note to say that he could win this game, Fine being the quarterback that is in question. but the Lions are motivated and they really are impressing me to start the year when I really thought they could be like a 10-8 team. They're on their way to possibly kicking off the season 5-1 through the first third of the season, picking the Lions. And then the final game of the week, the Ottawa Redblacks travel to Calgary to play the Calgary Stampeders. Ottawa coming off of a big win thanks to Dustin Crum and his legs. Brandon Dandridge also having a pick six, two two-point conversions, etc., etc. It was a good win, but it was a game that they probably shouldn't have won. Calgary coming off of probably their most impressive game of the year in two facets. Alford, of course, did have two return TDs, but Mayer looked really, really good. Probably the best he's looked all season. You know, the first four games, I'd kind of been harping on the fact that he had been playing extremely well. Past game, he had like 27 completions, all 36 attempts. Luther Hakanabanu looked really good. So yeah, Calgary seems to be rolling. Winnipeg is a team that doesn't affect this team. I don't know why I'm thinking of them. Thinking of Ottawa because they played Winnipeg. Ottawa, I think, has now won 2 in a row. They're 2-3, and they have a lot to play for within the playoffs. Calgary really looking to catch up ground to the other teams out west, specifically the Rough Riders, a team that they need to be able to leapfrog for a playoff spot. Without them having Trevor Harris, Calgary probably is going to be pretty motivated. And then I can't remember who is the running back for the Stampeders. It was Mills, but it was Tommy Lee Lewis that did the returns instead of Peyton Logan. He did pretty well, and I think for Calgary, of course, they have a lot going on there, and they're going to have to figure out defensively how they're going to be able to contain Dustin Crum, especially on the last play of the game. It seems like he is a threat with his legs. The defensive line has been able to get a lot of pressures. They're up there towards the top end of the sack category. Mika always has been really impressive this year, and they are a defense that I do think is pretty good. Obviously, they've had some games where the point total looks better than it is, but again, you know, if you have a game against Saskatchewan and you have Super Mario going on, that's going to be something going on there. But you do have a mobile quarterback, and you always have to watch out for that because he made Winnipeg's defense look absolutely silly at times. And then Ottawa's defense is definitely capable of shutting down the Calgary Stampeders offense. Did so earlier in the year. They played in Ottawa earlier, I want to say. I don't think Ottawa ended up winning that one. I think they eventually were grinded out by the Stamps. But in general, this is a different team without Arbuckle. Arbuckle, a little bit more of the safe guy. And I do think that Crum is obviously more of a question mark, but he has so much more mobility compared to Arbuckle, so that is an extra weapon in your toolbox there for Ottawa. This is a tough one because I do think that Ottawa's defense could change the game here and make Mayer possibly look bad. Mills, I don't think he had a lot of yards last game against the Riders. Didn't have a ton of carries, but still, I think I'm going to be picking the Stampeders here. I'm going to say that the good times come to an end against the Calgary side, but I'm hoping that for Ottawa's case, they can make it a good game and maybe pull out a win. We will see. These are my picks for the week. I am picking the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Toronto Argonauts, BC Lions, Calgary Stampeders. Going with the favorites this week. We will see how it happens. What are your picks for the week? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe and have a great night.